Hey, good morning, everybody. First of all, I do apologize if I sound a little blah. I just woke up a little while ago, but I wanted to try to get this out of the way for you guys today. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you guys to do me a solemn favor, and that's like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. Also, guys, click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube. You can find me at all your favorite audio and video podcast platforms like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and to an extent SiriusXM, and maybe in the near future because of the partnership with Spotify, potentially Netflix. You can also find me at other alternate video outlets like Rumble, Dailymotion, Odyssey, and Vimeo. I also have a Patreon, guys, so please check that out. It's going to be up and running once again, just like it did late last year. We're to the point that you'll be seeing content on there 24 to 48 hours before it shows up on platforms like YouTube or any platforms outside of YouTube, depending on whether or not it might be, YouTube appropriate. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at other creative outlets like DeviantArt at BVW1979, for Affinity at BW1979, and InkBunny.net at BWRoses. Also, folks, I have a Cash App and a Venmo. If you want to help me out directly that way, it would be greatly appreciative, especially at this time. So please go ahead and do so, whatever you can do. And and also, ladies and gentlemen, I have a couple of online stores. That's what I was trying to get at. I have a Fourth Wall store and a Teespring store. The Fourth Wall store link is in the middle of the description. Teespring store link is near the bottom. Also, I will have affiliated stores listed as well. So please go ahead and check those out. Whatever you need, go ahead and click on them because, clicking on an item you need helps me out via commissions. Also, ladies and gentlemen, hold on for a second. Make sure I get. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me at other social media outlets like Twitter, aka X.com, Blue Sky, and TikTok, all under under the BW Roses name. Also, ladies and gentlemen, during this live video premiere, you can chime on in your thoughts in the live chat, so go ahead and do so. And along with chiming your thoughts in, you can also donate through super chats as well. Basically, get your thoughts in as well as help out the brand. Whatever you could do there as well, be greatly appreciative. So go ahead and do that. And also, ladies and gentlemen, the comment section will be open on both occasions, live video premiere and afterwards. And super thanks will be open as well after the live video premiere. That way, if you don't get here in time for the live video premiere to share your thoughts and everything, you can still do so through the comment section, but you can also still donate through the super thanks. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get on to the topic at hand. Oh yeah, before I forget, you can also find me at DeviantArt at BVW1979, for Affinity at BW1979, and InkBunny.net at BWRoses. Just put those in there in case I forgot to do them. I think I did, but again, you can find me there as well. But again, let's get on to the topic at hand. Okay. Tubi, which is spelled T-U-B-I, Tubi, which is spelled again T-U-B-I, has been one of the more interesting, I guess you could say, ad-supported services out there. Now, you might ask yourself, well, what is ad support? Well, ad support basically is this. Ad support is basically this. It's a streaming service, on-demand streaming service, if you will, but it doesn't require payment. That's right. It, along with the likes of Pluto TV, does Pluto TV require payment? I don't think it does. I don't think Pluto TV does. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this being, like I said, Tubi, and Pluto TV, and even the likes of the built-in streaming services, ad-supported streaming services, like with me, Samsung TV Plus, and so on. Basically, Tubi, like I said, is one of those services to where what keeps them operational, what keeps them operational is the ads. What keeps them operational is the ads. And what that means, essentially, ladies and gentlemen, is, it's just like regular television. It's just like regular television, if you will. But the only difference is they show you at the top right or top left, corner of your screen. They show you how long an ad's going to be, or ads are going to be. So at most, they're telling you that, hey, you're going to have 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 2.5 minutes of ads, or you're going to have 2 minutes worth of ads, or you might have 3. Now, the way this also operates, these ad-supported services, is if you decide to rewind or fast forward, because you do have that capability, just like any streaming service, you're going to be able to get to your spot, but you're also going to have to endure maybe, again, 2.5 to 3 minutes worth of, commercials, if not maybe 4 to 6 minutes worth of commercials, because basically, let's say the part you want to get to is a couple of ad breaks back. You're going to have to endure, potentially back-to-back ad breaks. Like you'll get an ad break, and then you'll get some of the content, and then all of a sudden here's another ad break. It's to make up for, not going through the ad breaks, if you know what I mean. Now, after you go through the ad breaks, from my own experience, you won't have to worry about that, because if you want to go back and find something, you'll be good to go. At least that's how I last experienced it, unless they change things up. But that's basically what these ad-supported streaming services are. They're the kind of services that essentially, like I said, they don't require, acquire a paid subscription or anything like that to watch anything. All it requires is your patience. And again, like I said, the thing that they do, and again, this is Tubi, this is Pluto TV, this is Samsung TV Plus, and others like them. What they do is they put that little timer in the upper right hand or upper left hand corner of your screen to let you know how much time you got to go on the commercials. So what you can do, let's say you got 30 minutes, right? You can get up, go to the kitchen, depending on how far it is. You can go to the kitchen, you can make yourself a sandwich, you can get yourself a glass of soda, maybe a glass of wine, champagne, you name it. If you get that, you come back, and you should be back in time to be able to watch, the rest of the show. Again, like I said, it's essentially just like regular television, except the only difference is they let you know how long the ads are going to be for. So that way you have a good idea. Like, okay, this ad just started now at, let's say, what time is it right now? What time is it right now? It's 10:57. So let's say they put the ad on there because of transitioning maybe. Well, it's not because they're transitioning to a new show, but it's, you decide, okay, it's giving me, it just went to an ad, right? So it's like 10:56, 10:57 right now. And it says the ad's going to go for about 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, or 3 minutes. Basically, it's telling you, hey, you got till almost 11 o'clock to get up and get yourself something to drink, go check the mail, do stuff like that, feed the dog. It's telling you got plenty of time. You got plenty of time. And then, like I said, the only extension of time you would have when it comes to ads is if you decide to fast forward or rewind to a certain specific part in the movie or the show, and then what happens there is you might get a tiny bit of it, but then you'll get an ad, and then maybe a tiny bit more, then another ad to make up for what you skipped. Or you can get an extended length of ads. So in other words, instead of getting like 2.5 minutes, you can get 5 minutes, because they gotta make up what you skipped. You see, the ads, like I said, are the way they make the money. So if you try to skip an ad, they're basically going to tell you, yeah, nice try. You try skipping, you're still going to get it. So if you have enough patience, ladies and gentlemen, then essentially Tubi is a good platform if you have enough patience. Now, when this announcement was made, and you see the title of the video, you know exactly what we're going to talk about here. Some people did kind of comment on social media that now that this is happening, They will not be surprised if Tubi, and again that's spelled Tubi, Tubi, they would not be surprised if Tubi ends up basically starting to, I guess you could say advertise, or hype up potential paid tiers. And what the reason they say that is because they know in their minds, that folks will not be tolerant. They will not be tolerant of this, of this whole block of entertainment coming, animated entertainment coming. Excuse me. They will not be thrilled with, the fact that yeah, this is all great stuff, but now they also have to essentially wait, 3 minutes, basically when after an ad starts, to watch the show or resume watching the show. The other thing they don't like, now the other reason they say this too, is because they know that when it comes to platforms like Tubi and Samsung TV Plus and others like them, is when they do commercial breaks, it'll be like right in the middle of something. Like instead of doing the traditional, okay, let's go to this part and then go to a commercial, right? Kind of go like to the ending of a scene and fade out, go to commercial, right? Instead of doing that, it'll just abruptly, come on with an ad, and people don't like that. People don't like that. But that's all part of the way things work with these services. Sometimes, basically, they're going to be like, okay, we need to put an ad here because, we're required to put an ad here at this time, at this time and place, even if it's going to, interrupt something abruptly. That's how it works. That's essentially how it works, ladies and gentlemen. But outside of, the ad situation, to where, again, if you have patience, you're good to go. If you have enough patience, you're good to go. Outside of the ad situation, this is a really big opportunity for Tubi that I think a lot of fans were hoping for. Now, I've watched Tubi before. In fact, I have my own account on Tubi, and I have my own list already on Tubi. And they got plenty of content on there, including content you get here on YouTube, you get on Paramount Plus, you name it. They get, basically all the paid tiers, all the paid subscription services, that are not Disney. That are not Disney. Let me make that clear. That are not Disney. Most of the other services that you find a lot of this content on, you can find it there as well. And I know people might be like, well, wait a minute. Why should I pay for these services when I could just get the same amount of stuff on Tubi? And that is a good question. But here's the answer. The reason people pay for this stuff, the reason they do, is because they like to enjoy the programming without interruption. That's right. They want to watch the programming without interruption. And what that means is if they go with the premium account, if you will, if they go with a premium account, then basically they could end up watching like some of these shows without issue. They can end up watching some of these shows without a problem. Like with me, I have Paramount Plus, right? So me being a Sonic fan, I could watch Underground, I could watch Adventures, I could watch Satayam without any interruptions. I could just watch all 22 to 23 minutes worth of the show with no commercial. Same with Amazon Prime. If I have an Amazon Prime account, there are certain shows, nostalgic shows that I could watch without any issue. There's that. And, the same with shows like on Peacock and Disney Plus. You can watch shows without any interruptions if you have a premium account. Tubi is one of these outlets. They are one of these outlets, like I mentioned, that don't require any kind of, separate tier for you to watch content, commercial free. They don't. They don't, require that. And honestly, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Now, I'm not saying what some people are, predicting potentially could happen. I'm not saying it won't. I'm not saying that Tubi and outlets like them, when they get to a certain point, I'm not saying that they won't decide, you know what, we've made enough money through the ad support system, let's add some, premium ad-free tiers. I'm not saying they won't do that. But what I'm saying is right now, they are sticking by a model they basically have said and swore to that they will not change, that they will not, go against in the future. That this is the model, this is the model they're going to stick with, going forward. This is the model they're going to stick with going forward, if you know what I mean. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, like I said, because, one, people don't need another subscription service to, pay for, and having an ad-free one to where they can, watch, essentially some of the same stuff they've watched before, even though they might have to wait a little bit, if they don't want to go the paid subscription route. Basically, if they can have a service that allows them to do that, then so be it. Then so be it. And that's why a lot of folks, when this news came out, just in time for Valentine's Day weekend, this news came out, they were happier than anything. They were happier than anything because essentially you're getting every episode, as far as we know, you're getting every episode of all the shows that you grew up with over the past, get this, 60 years. 60 plus years, you're getting every episode of every show, hopefully, that you grew up with over the past 60 years. Now, there are some notable omissions. There's no doubt. But my thought is this. Those notable omissions will be rectified in the future. They will be rectified in the future because if this succeeds, then they will essentially, there's no doubt in my mind, Tubi will essentially, try to get the distributing license for all the other shows that fans want to see, all the other nostalgic shows that fans want to see that are being omitted for right now. They're going to do what they can to get basically, the rest of those shows onto the service. They are. And I'm not saying that some shows that are currently on there, animated-wise, are going to get sacrificed. I'm not saying that's going to happen because you got this whole block of cartoons and everything coming. But I don't think there will be any sacrifice. I don't think there will be. I think you're going to still have the same shows there, as far as I know. You'll still have the same shows there, but you're just getting an additional library and everything of content, which is good. So that list you might create, like I've created mine, that list is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, with the amount of content that's coming starting at the beginning of next month. Now, what's interesting, about that too, is they say they're starting out with a certain, list of programs. They're starting out with a certain list of programs, but they don't kind of like give off the vibe of, what else is, coming their way or anything like that. They're not giving off that vibe of, what other shows, are coming their way. They're not giving off that vibe. Hopefully they will. And I think the reason they might be a little delayed on some of these, maybe by a week, maybe by, a day, maybe by a month, if you will, is because of the fact that they're still gathering all the episodes they need to fully make sure that when they, basically, put that show on their service. Excuse me. I was just looking out the window. I thought I saw something there. It's just our neighbor mowing the lawn. But anyway, basically, I think the reason they're kind of holding back a little bit is so that way when they do put the show on their service, they can essentially make sure that they have nothing missing. Like all the episodes are there and everything. So that might be why they're delaying, some of these shows from showing up. Now again, it could be a daily thing, it could be a weekly thing, it could be a monthly thing. I even tweeted back to them, I asked them, hey, are the releases going to be this way? Are they going to be daily? Are they going to be weekly? Are they going to be monthly? Because if there's one critique I think some people will have with this announcement, is, yeah, you're showing all this great list of shows, and you're showing what you're starting out with, but you're not telling us when the others will show up. So that's probably the only critique people will have. That's the only critique people will have, when it comes to this announcement, excuse me. But is this a big deal for Tubi? Absolutely. It is a big deal. Because these kind of deals do help, outlets like Tubi maybe consider tweaking, the promise a little bit by saying, yeah, we're still mostly going to be ad support, but we might consider doing something here and there for certain, reasons and everything. It might make them consider. Not saying it will, but it might. It might. But again, this is a big deal for Tubi. It's a big deal for anybody, that loves animation. Especially over the past 60 plus years, because these are shows that obviously are good. Some of them are going to still make their debut on MeTV Tunes. There's no doubt, and some of them have made their debut on MeTV Tunes. And are still there. And some of these shows basically had no home to go to. They had no home to go to for a while, and now they are. Now they have a home to go to, which is pretty cool. But why is this also happening, you might ask? It's happening mainly because of the fact that, as some people reported, from their own, excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied. Hold on. Sorry, I almost got tongue-tied. I had to drink some coffee. But the reason this is happening, according to some other people's, I almost got tongue. Hold on. Sorry, I almost got tongue-tied again. But the reason this is happening, according to other fans and people's speculative theories and thoughts and conspiracies, if you will, is due to the fact that, Looney Tunes ended up on Tubi, right? Now, Looney Tunes is also now on TCM, Turner Classic Movies, which is a good thing. How they got those going a little bit is going to be interesting, but it does feel like TCM, Turner Classic Movies, is dedicating some of the blocks on a monthly, if not bi-monthly basis to animation. They are. It was about a month ago or two that they did a Hanna-Barbera block in prime time of Yogi's First Christmas and Hey There, It's Yogi Bear. Which was pretty good. Which was pretty good to see and hear. So obviously Warner Brothers Discovery, despite what people may say about them, at least they are trying to find homes for that animation. Whether it's OG Warner Brothers like Looney Tunes or Hanna-Barbera, they're at least trying to find some outlets for them, for people to enjoy them at. Because they know animation is still a big deal, especially nostalgic animation. So yeah, Looney Tunes, debuted on Tubi. Tubi, late last year or mid last year, mid to late point last year, I should say, acquired, I think it was around that time, acquired the distributing license for all the Looney Tunes shorts. And you get them in all episodic form. And what I mean by episodic form is basically, you have, and it's even in seasonal and yearly form, if you will, that you get them. You get all the episodes, all the cartoons, I should say, gathered together in episodic compilations that you can just watch at any time. Again, the only catch, like I said earlier, is the ads. You got to watch out for those. But again, they at least let you know with that timer on the upper right or upper left-hand corner exactly how long you got. It could be a short amount of time. It could be a 3-minute amount of time, whatever the case might be. But basically, when they acquired Looney Tunes, they saw a huge uptick in viewership. A huge uptick in new, I wouldn't say subscribers, but a new uptick, in new members, and everything because of this. Not this, but because of that, deal, because of that announcement. They saw a huge uptick, and they loved it. They loved seeing that huge uptick in new membership. They loved seeing that uptick, in new viewership and all that. So, obviously that gave them the confidence to want to work out a deal to acquire more nostalgic cartoons over the past 60 years, and that's what they're doing. I mean, you can't tell me they don't see an uptick, in viewership, with the likes of Hasbro's G.I. Joe, or Hasbro's Transformers, or Hasbro's My Little Pony. OG1 originals, if you will, or even Sonic Satyam or Underground or Adventures. You can't tell me they don't see an uptick. With all these nostalgic cartoons that they have, because they do. And now they're going to see an even bigger uptick, with the acquisition of these animations that they got. Because again, they saw that big viewership, rise, with Looney Tunes being acquired. Now they're going to probably see a bigger one as well. But what are the cartoons that are showing up? Well, it's a long list, so grab yourself a popcorn. I'm going to drink me some coffee right now to get myself ready. It's a long list, but I'm about to tell you what this is about. Alright, so what are the shows that are going to be showing up on Tubi starting March 1st? Well, the list of shows that are going to be showing up on Tubi beginning March 1st are the classic Abbott and Costello cartoons, the 1974 Addams Family, The Adventures of Batman, Animaniacs, and this is the OG Animaniacs, by the way, the OG 90s Animaniacs, that's right, which includes, because of a lot of fans of her, Minerva Mink. That's right, you'll get to see, her two cartoons, Moon over Minerva and Meet Minerva. And if you want to watch them in the way they were meant to be, you can see Meet Minerva before Moon over Minerva. And yes, both animated shorts, both animated shorts have her melting in both. The Moon over Minerva one is where Wilfred has to pick her up and wring her out like a towel to restore her. And the other one is where she melts literally through the arms of her cousin's, literally melts, through the arms of her best friend's cousin. That's what I was trying to say. I almost had a brain fart there. Literally melts through, his hands and, basically splits in half when she does so before, reforming into an obnoxious boat horn and stuff like that. So, yeah. You can watch those cartoons with the OG Animaniacs, including Space Probe, where Dot literally melts in the chair and has that little mind-reading machine fall on top of her melted form, with the aliens lifting it up going like, did we just kill her? And then she reforms. So, yeah, you get to watch that Animaniacs and everything. So, yeah, it's going to be great to see. And that's going to be one of the cartoons that debuts on the 1st. But continuing on, you get Aquaman. Now, just to let you know, The Adventures of Batman and Aquaman, these are, I think, the Filmation ones. These are the Filmation ones with collaboration by Hanna-Barbera, but mostly Filmation. You also get Astro and the Space Mutts. That's pretty cool. That's a Jetson spin-off with Astro the dog. You get Adam Ant, which is part of the House of Hanna-Barbera right now on MeTV Toons. You get Baby Looney Tunes, has their own block on MeTV Toons at times. Batman, the Brave and the Bold, the more light-hearted version of the Batman animated collection of recent years, which pays more of an homage to the I'm getting tongue-tied again, guys. Hold on. Pays more of an homage to the Adam West one. Sorry about that, guys. Like I said, I just woke up a little while ago, so my brain's still waking up. I do apologize. I'm usually more sharper than this, okay? But yeah, you get Batman, the Brave and the Bold. You get Be Cool Scooby-Doo, if you like that. Then you get Beetlejuice. And again, some of these are already on MeTV Toons. You get the 2005 version of Ben 10. Beware the Batman. You get the CGI series. You get that CGI series. You get Captain Caveman. You get Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels. You get Captain Planet, which is also on MeTV Toons. You get Codename Kids Next Door. Courage the Cowardly Dog. Cow and Chicken. Dastardly and Muttley and the Flying Machines. Dexter's Laboratory. Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. This was a show that was, and I think it still is, kind of on HBO Max. It was on the former Boomerang streaming service. It's basically another iteration of The Wizard of Oz, but Dorothy's back in Oz. You get Dragon's Lair. Get a load of that. That's a Hanna-Barbera classic that's based on the Don Bluth video game. The video game that Don Bluth brought to life. It's basically, it's essentially what it is. It's a point and click game, if you will. It's a point and click game, and it's an endearing classic. It basically changed how you played video games at times in the arcades, because nobody saw a game like that ever. And if you want more detail on it, you could check out James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, in his review of the Dragon Layers NES game. And you can also check out Irate Gamer Chris Bors. He did a take on it as well, where he talked about the differences between ports, from the arcade to the console and all that. So check those videos out here on YouTube. I think you're going to probably find those interesting and everything, if you will. But yeah, Dragon's Lair, that's pretty cool. Duck Dodgers is cool. That's cool to see. That's on late at night, as far as I still know, on MeTV Tunes. But Duck Dodgers, that's kind of cool. Dukes of Hazzard, the animated series. Yes, Dukes of Hazzard had an animated series. Basically, this animated series was a spin-off of the live-action series. Excuse me. But the difference about the animated series, and this is the one thing I want to talk about when it comes to, some of these animated adaptations of shows that are going to be on this list. When a lot of these shows got animated adaptations back in the late 70s and early 80s and stuff, the reason they got them, and even went up to the 90s as well, so it was throughout the 70s, the 80s somewhat, and in the 90s, the reason they ended up getting these, animated adaptations or spin-offs is because with animation, you could do a lot more. You can, do things that you couldn't do on a regular television budget, with certain programming. Like the Dukes of Hazzard, the live-action show, you couldn't do much with it, because of the television broadcast budget limitations. You could have great wide shots of the car doing its thing, jumping over cliffs and all that, but you couldn't do any more than that unless you had a bigger budget. Let's say for maybe a made-for-TV movie or a theatrical adaptation, if you will, down the line. You couldn't really, do too much. But animation, as limited as it might be at times when it came to Hanna-Barbera, animation allowed you to do a lot more. It allowed you to, go and do things with the characters and everything that you couldn't do before. And take them to locales that, again, budget-wise would not, be possible from a television perspective, if you know what I mean. So Dukes of Hazzard getting an animated series is, one of those reasons that, it was done. So they could do those kind of things. And they would give them a reasoning, too. Sometimes the reasoning didn't have an explanation of how it came to be. Like this one, I think, is going around the world in a world race and all that. And Sheriff Hogg is on the trail even during the race, and I think he's trying to win the race too. It doesn't give us any kind of like origin of explanation of how it came to be, but hey, it kept kids entertained that watched the live action show, because I watched it a little bit too as a kid. So to see this happening, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see. They're also going to have Dumb and Dumber, the animated series, which is based off a Jim Carrey movie. Okay, that's kind of cool. Dynomutt Dog Wonder is coming. Ed, and Eddy is coming. Evil Con Carne is coming. Flintstone Family Adventures is coming. Flintstone Kids is coming. Foster's Home of Imaginary Friends is coming. Freakazoid is coming. The Grape Ape Show is coming. Help! It's the Hair Bear Bunch is coming. Hong Kong Phooey is coming. Jonny Quest, the classic Jonny Quest, is coming. Justice League is coming. Justice League Action is coming. Now, I don't know about Unlimited. I'm sure Unlimited is going to be under the Justice League name. That's why they didn't say it. But yeah, Justice League and Justice League Action, and we can assume being under the, with it just saying Justice League, we can assume Justice League Unlimited too. Then we also get Crypto the Superdog, Legion of Superheroes, Lunatics Unleashed, yes, Lunatics Unleashed, Looney Tunes 3D Shorts, Looney Tunes cartoons, which are already there, Mad, because yes, the Mad magazine had an animated show, Magilla Gorilla, Mucha Lucha, the new Looney Tunes shows, also known as Wabbit, new Scooby-Doo Mysteries, yes, the show that basically solidified in a lot of fans' minds Shaggy and Daphne as an item. So yes, the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries are coming. Paddington Bear is going to be on there. Pebbles and Bam Bam. That's right. Now, in case you guys don't know what Pebbles and Bam Bam are, Pebbles and Bam Bam is a 1970s cartoon series, cartoon spin-off, of the Flintstones, but it has Pebbles and Bam Bam as teenagers. That's right. They have them as teenagers, and what's unique about this show, what's unique about the Pebbles and Bam Bam show, ladies and gentlemen, what's unique about it is the fact that not only do they have them as teenagers, but it's like a combination of three of the more popular genres at that time for kids. It was a combination of the Flintstones with Pebbles and Bam Bam. It was a combination of the Archies, because of Pebbles, Bam Bam, and their friends kind of being, like a band at times, a singing band. And it combined Scooby-Doo, because of mystery solving at times. So you have three of the best elements for kids at that time. Flintstones, Archies, and Scooby-Doo mystery solving, all combined in the Pebbles and Bam Bam show. And if you're just more of a Hanna-Barbera fan, even to this day, it had two of the best elements. Flintstones and Scooby-Doo all rolled into one. So that was, so that's pretty cool to see and everything. And I do have the animated series complete on DVD. I think it's one of the series that they should bring out to Blu-ray through Warner Archive, and they might, depending on the success, of it being on Tubi. I mean, obviously it's getting some viewership on MeTV Tunes, because let's not forget, just like with Scooby-Doo, Flintstones does rotate. Different iterations of the series, of the franchise, throughout its run on MeTV Tunes. So sometimes you get regular Flintstones, and then sometimes you won't. But it's mostly on Sundays. So on Sundays, sometimes you get regular Flintstones, and sometimes you won't. But yeah, what was I? You get Pebbles and Bam Bam, Perils of Penelope Pitstop, Pinky in the Brain, Pinky Elmira in the Brain, which is the one a lot of fans felt, went off a cliff. Like, okay, Pinky in the Brain getting their own series, that's cool. Very popular characters, you could do a lot more with them, in their own expanded series. But then adding Elmira, basically, as some people would put it, bogged it down. Like, yeah, you didn't need to put this character in there. You didn't have to do that. That was unnecessary. Excuse me. Then you get the Powerpuff Girls. I think that's both iterations. But mostly it sounds like the original. But it could be both iterations. Quick Draw McGraw, Ricochet Rabbit, Scooby and Scrappy-Doo, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue, Smurfs, Snagglepuss, Static Shock, Super Friends, Supernatural the Animated Series. Yes. Not the animated series, but the anime series. Excuse me. Let me correct myself. Supernatural the Anime Series. So that's coming. Tasmania, which just debuted on MeTV Tunes. Teen Titans, the original one that pretty much a lot of people felt like, yeah, Warner Brothers, you could stop here with Teen Titans. You don't have to do the Go. Then you get 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. You get the Batman, which is considered another good iteration of Batman in an animated form. The Completely Mental Misadventures of Ed Grimley. The Frankenstones. That's right, the Frankenstones had their own show. Because we all remember that the Flintstones met them, right? There's that special where they met them and everything. Well, because of that, they got their own show. You get after that, you get the Grim Adventures of Bill and Mandy. You get Heathcliff and Dingbat, the animated series The Mask, The New Adventures of Batman, The New Adventures of Gilligan. Now, The New Adventures of Batman, just like the other one, which is The Adventures of Batman, I think those were both Filmation. They were both Filmation. A little bit of collaboration, I should say, with Hanna-Barbera. But yeah, you get The New Adventures of Batman, you get The New Adventures of Gilligan, The New Fred and Barney Show, which I just got courtesy of Frank Hill, and again, thank you, Frank Hill, for sending those my way. The New Scooby-Doo Movies, which is pretty cool. The Plastic Man Comedy, Comedy Adventure Hour. The Real Adventures of Jonny Quest. The Secret Squirrel Show. The Super Globetrotters. The Yogi Bear Show. The Original Tiny Toon Adventures. Tom and Jerry Comedy Show. Tom and Jerry Kids. The Tom and Jerry Show. Tom and Jerry Tales. Top Cat. Unikitty, based on the character from the Lego Movie. Wacky Races, and the 2017 rebooted Wacky Races. You get, I can't pronounce this one, Xylon Showdown? Xylon Showdown, correct me on that. But Xylon Showdown, which was on WB. Yo Yogi, which is kind of having a resurgence a little bit on MeTV2, thanks to the rotating with the Yogi Bear stuff. Yogi's Galaxy Goof Ups, Yogi's Gang, Yogi's Space Race, and Yogi's Treasure Hunt. So that's all the shows as far as I know. Make sure I didn't miss any. Make sure I didn't miss any here. I don't think I did. I'll have them listed anyway, so you guys can check them out and make sure I didn't miss any. But yeah, that's all the shows that are coming. I think I did say Pup Named Scooby-Doo is also coming, so I just want to make sure. But yeah, that's all the shows that are coming to Tubi starting March 1st. They even say on their official X page, Twitter page, my cartoon era starts March 1st. Now, what's interesting about that is, they posted that at 4:31 p.m. 4:31 p.m. 2 days ago. 2 days ago on Friday the 13th. They basically posted that at 4:31 p.m. I'll assume Pacific time. But then here's what they posted about. Let me see, trying to make sure I get this correct. They posted this part. They posted a retweet to so they can basically confirm how they're starting out. They posted this about 40 minutes after at 5:11 p.m. They said kicking off with these on March 1st, and this is what they're talking about. Kicking off with these on March 1st. They said kicking off the new era, the animation era on Tubi on March 1st is Animaniacs, the OG Animaniacs, Powerpuff Girls, which we could assume is either the original or both, Teen Titans, The Batman, Ben 10, 2005, Pinky and the Brain, Justice League, and we can assume by extension Justice League Unlimited, Batman, the Brave and the Bold, Dexter's Laboratory, Ed, Edd and Eddy, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Tasmania, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Codename Kid Next Doors, The Mask animated series, and Yogi's Gang, and more to come. Now, I did ask, and it's right there, I'd ask Tubi, will the releases be weekly, daily, or monthly? And I've had 11 people review that question, because that's obviously going to be a question a lot of fans, are wondering about. Like, okay, how is this all going to work out? How are you going to, release these shows, on your service? I mean, it's great to see, but how are you going to do this? Are you going to do it from a weekly standpoint? Are you going to do it from a monthly standpoint? Is it going to be day by day? What is it going to be? And one can assume that just by the batch that they're starting out with, one can assume it might be weekly. It might be a weekly deal to where a week after the first, you're going to see them debut on, you're going to see more debut on the 8th, then more debut on the 15th, then more debut potentially, I would say, on the, the 22nd, I think. The 22nd, and then maybe the 29th. Some can assume that might be how it goes. But it might be a monthly deal. It might be like, yeah, we're going to do some here, and then the 1st of April, here's more. 1st of May, here's more. Maybe spread it out throughout the year. I don't really know. But that's going to be a question I'm sure they're going to have to clarify. That's a question they're going to have to clarify. Now, it might also be something that happens hourly. Maybe that's how they're starting out the day, and then throughout the day they add more. We don't know. We don't know. But this is a huge win. This is a huge win for Tubi to acquire the distributing license for all these shows. It really is. But like I said, basically you have to be patient with the ads, because the ads are going to be the one thing that I truly believe will make people's patience be tested, if you will, because it's like, okay, we get the fact that you need to make money, but why give us so many ads? But here's the thing too about the ad situation. Yeah, they will give you ads. They will give you ads, but when you get one ad, you don't have to worry about another ad to almost like maybe near the end of the show if you just watch it straight through. If you just watch it straight through, you don't have to worry about that. Now, I'm not saying that's true for all shows and movies that are on there, but pretty much that's what I've experienced at times. That if you just let it play through, like certain through a certain segment or something like that, then you don't have to worry about ads showing up until about the end, and that's about it. Which is cool to see. And I've also realized too, as I think I mentioned earlier, that when you let the ad play, but then you want to go back to a part that the ad either interrupted or came before the ad happened, you don't have. Then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, from my own experience, you don't have to worry about the ad showing back up, because now you have just a free range of going back and forth. But the one thing that's going to get tested here is your patience. It's going to be your patience. And again, I could understand looking at the list of shows that are listed off there. Looking at the list of shows that are listed off there, I can understand people's frustration. I can understand their doubt and everything about whether or not Tubi will be able to keep their promise of not basically going and adding a paid tier or premium tier and everything to watch these ad free, because if that happens, then people will be tempted. They will be tempted to want to pay it if that was to happen. But others will be like, but others might be like, we're good with what we have. We don't have to worry. We're good with what we have. We don't have to worry. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But again, if Tubi is true to what they're saying, if they're true to the fact that, hey, we're not going to become a paid tier service, we're going to be mostly ad supported. If they're true to what they say, then this is one way they're going to remain ad supported. This is one way they're going to basically say, yeah, we're not going to we're not going to make anybody pay additional fee, a premium fee, just so they can watch something ad free. Because if you don't think they see a gold mine of advertisement revenue coming from this, if you don't think they see a gold mine coming from this, then you're out of your mind. Because they do. They do. And then, again, there are some omissions. There's no doubt. There are omissions like Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, The Impossibles, if you will, which is a classic show and such. There are some omissions, there's no doubt. But I would not be surprised that down the line they might be added on, but it all depends on the success, almost right out of the gate, that this new block of shows has over the next, several months, if not weeks, starting after March 1st. So it's going to be interesting to see. But what this does, though, is it adds to a lineup of programming on Tubi, animated programming, that's already there. Like I said, Transformers, My Little Pony, G.I. Joe, the G1 versions. I think Tubi even has Friendship is Magic. Yeah, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is also on there, and I think Sonic is still on there. The Satien, the Adventures, the Underground. I think Boom's on there. I think to an extent, and all that. And I think even the Spanish language versions of the shows are on there too. So So basically, Tubi essentially is becoming, the be-all, end-all for animation. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, the question is going to probably be, the question, will probably be raised of whether or not some of the cartoons and animated programming that's on there now would have to leave to make room. I don't think so. I don't think so, because if you're an ad-supported streaming service, then I think the last thing you want to do essentially is get rid of any more, or get rid of programming, shows or movies that could add to that revenue. Because the more you build on it, revenue-wise, the more you might consider doing a paid subscription tier if you want to, or if they want to keep the word and say Tubi is, ad supported, but they know that, hey, we could still do another version of us, but we could do it as a separate service, then Fox Corporation, which owns them, could say, yeah, let's do that. And that could happen. The Fox Corporation, which is entirely separate from Disney, they were not part of the Disney acquisition, by the way. The Fox Corporation could say, hey, let's make a spin-off of Tubi, call it Tubi Plus, because Plus is a word everybody uses for the service. Make it Tubi Plus, or Tubi Premium, whatever they want to call it, Tubi Gold, and say, hey, here you can watch all the same stuff, but you can watch it for free. Oh, not for free, but you can watch it for a price, like maybe $6.99 a month. You can watch all these shows ad-free, all these movies ad-free. That could be what happens. That could be what happens in the future, depending on the success of all these animated acquisitions and any of the live-action acquisitions they get this upcoming year too. Because you can't tell me that in addition to all these animated shows that they're getting, that they're not going to be getting some live-action stuff along with it, because I'm sure they will. And the more they acquire, the more it's going to tempt them to either add a premium tier, like I said, or do a spin-off service, which is called Tubi, Tubi, Tubi Gold, or Tubi Premium, or Tubi Plus. It's gonna make them reconsider one of those two options. More so the spin-off, I think, than tainting and going against their word about turning this service into, a non-ad supported service. You know what I mean? Now, I know people might say, well, aren't some of the other premium services out there, like Peacock and Disney and all them, aren't they ad-supported, even if you pay for them? Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are, and that's kind of ridiculous that they are, but still, the point is, though, when they do ad support, they only do it like once or twice, and that's it, as far as I know. Tubi is the kind, like Samsung TV Plus and others, that will basically go into ad support for at least 3 to 4 minutes. Peacock and Disney and all of them, they'll do ad support for less than that. And it's mostly like for, stuff that's on their services. Excuse me. But here with Tubi, it's more along the lines of, yeah, we're going to give you 3 minutes to do what you got to do with the, while we play these ads and all that, or 2.5 or whatever, to do what you got to do while we play these ads, and then that's it. Because again, they're going to have that timer in the upper left-hand or upper right-hand corner. And again, if you try to go back and forth, while trying to skip the ads, you're still going to get the ads, there's no doubt. You're still going to get the ads. But what you're going to do, unfortunately, while you get the ads, is you're going to wait an additional maybe minute or 2.5 minutes, while they're, while they're happening, and while they're playing, so it'll give you a little bit more time to, go and do what you got to do. Not just, get, like I said earlier, like, get a glass of champagne, wine or soda or coffee, or get yourself something to eat, or feed the animals and stuff like that. It will basically, it'll basically give you time to do that, as well as even go out and, let's say, check the mail and stuff, or check your car and make sure there's nothing leaking and stuff like that. So, basically that's what will happen if you, like I said, decide to try to rewind or fast forward past the ads. You're basically going to give yourself an additional amount of ads. And again, like I said earlier, this is more about This is more about patience than anything else that will be tested. But like I said, I would not put it past them to be tempted to do one of the two, mostly the latter, which is do a spin-off Tubi service where it's essentially the same thing, but it's more, it's more ad-free. Basically, you pay a premium, you pay a price of, like I said, $6.99 a month, and you get the same stuff over on the spin-off Tubi service that you would get on the free one, but you don't have to worry about ads whatsoever. That's what I believe will be more tempted than just, adding the, premium tier support or stuff like that to the service. But again, the question is, how are these going to be released? Are they going to be released daily? Are they going to be released monthly? Are they going to be released weekly? I would say probably it's in the middle. I would say it's going to be weekly. I would say weekly, mostly due to the fact that, like I said earlier, they still have to, they still have to basically get all these shows together, if you will, make sure everything is accounted for episodic-wise before they put it out there. That's what I'm thinking is happening. Because what you're seeing right now, the list that you got right now, that's going to start them off, a lot of those are already pretty much set and ready to go because of MeTV Tunes and other outlets. So you don't have to worry. But when it comes to the other programming that they're bringing on board, they got to make sure that everything is accounted for. Everything is, there for them to be able to showcase on their platform. So honestly, if you're hoping for Tiny Toon Adventures, for example, to be on there right away, you might have to wait an additional week or so before it shows up because they got to make sure they get all the episodes of Tiny Toons, on there. They got to make sure they got to get them all on there. The same with, let's say Heathcliff and Dingbat. If you're into that, they got to make sure everything gets on there. They got to make sure everything is accounted for. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting change, and it's definitely going to make Tubi, in my opinion, one of the more top tier streaming services out there. I mean, people might say, well, you go to Tubi, you go there to die, Well, this might change people's minds because this isn't where you're going to die. This is where you're going to go to enjoy your entertainment. In my opinion, this is where you're going to go to enjoy your entertainment. But yeah, this is exciting news, and can't wait to see what they do with it. Can't wait to see how they release these shows. Like I said, it's going to be interesting. If it's a daily release, then like each day there's a new lineup added, that's cool too. I have no problem. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. We'll see what they come up with from a strategy standpoint of releasing each of these shows, if you will, onto the platform. It's going to be interesting to see. And again, I'm telling you right now, the animation is not the only thing that Tubi's getting. Tubi is also getting some live action stuff. I don't know what it is, but I know they're getting live action, along with the animation. So again, you can't have one without the other. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Because even though I have to deal with ads and all that, I have my niece and her family, they have Tubi, and obviously they deal with ads, but they have no problem because it's like, hey, we get our entertainment, cool, no problem. But even if I have to deal with ads and all that, I have no issue with that because that way I can just watch the show right then and there. I mean, yeah, I have a lot of the shows, on physical media, some of them, if not most of them, thanks to Frank Kill, it's Frank and others. But yeah, to be able to not have to, dig into my dresser cabinet, if you will, and pull out Animaniacs just to watch, Moon over Minerva or Meet Minerva just to see Minerva do the melting gag and all that, it'll be a lot more easier, if you know what I mean. It will be. Except, like I said, the only thing that might try your patience, the only thing that might try your patience is the ads. So you gotta be patient with that. That's all I'm gonna say. You gotta be really patient with that. But I'm looking forward to it. I really am. And here's the thing. It's gonna open the door for other shows to show up as well. Because if you think the shows I listed is the end of it, if you think that's the end of it, you don't You do not know animation. You do not know, because there's other shows out there. There are other animated shows out there that have yet to be released publicly after they've debuted. For example, there's this animated show that was done by Rick Springfield, and it was called, I think, Mission Magic. You call it Mission Magic, and it's got the song "Do You Believe in Magic?" And that right there, that show, which people would look at and says predates Magical School Bus because of the same kind of aesthetics, the same kind of the same kind of atmosphere and presentation at times. That predates Magical School Bus and Mrs. Frizz, if you will, Mrs. Frizzle. But yeah, that show right there, Mission Magic, that could show up on Tubi down the line. That show could show up on MeTV2. So there's a whole lineages. Rough and Ready, as far as I know, is yet to be. I think it's been seen on the House of Hanna-Barbera, but it's yet to have its own individual release. On MeTV Tunes, as well as elsewhere. So here with Tubi, they could get it. They could get it there. So again, the door is open. The door is absolutely open for this to happen, for this to become a reality, in the near future. And I, for one, can't wait, because what it's doing, what this kind of change, what this announcement is doing, with these arrival of these animated shows, and by extension some live action shows as well. Like I said, because you can't have one without the other. What this is doing is it's basically sending a message to all the premium streaming services out there that say, yeah, you are a good service. There is no doubt. You got some good movies and programming. There's no doubt. But you're not the only ones. And we're here to show you as an ad-supported service, that you don't need to make people pay to enjoy your content or to have good content. And that's basically, what's happening here. This is sending a message to those platforms. This is sending a message to each and every one of them, if you will, each and every one of them, that basically, long story short, that if you don't want to lose your subscribers, then you need to give them content that they want, and you also need to give it to them without having them pay a dime, even if they're not using your premium account. And I say this because last night my family here was watching a movie that they were interested in when they heard it was coming out to theaters a couple months ago. And that was Sing Song Blue. And that is a true story based on a tribute band to Neil Diamond. And they saw it last night, and they told me, they knocked on my door, they came into my room, and they told me that it was a good movie. They loved it. And they want the soundtrack. And I knew, just by knowing them the way I do, knowing what they like, I knew, honestly, that they would enjoy it. And we tried telling my other family members about it, and they said, well, we can't really watch it because even though we have the same service, we have the free option. We have the free option and everything. And to me, it's like, well, it shouldn't matter if you have the free option. If the movie is released by Universal and Focus Features, essentially an Xfinity Comcast company, then it doesn't matter if you have premium or free, you should get it anyway. And to me, that's a message that I think is going to get sent here. Like, if you don't want to lose anybody to, outlets like Tubi, then you need to change up your strategy and say, okay, fine. We'll put out on new releases for everybody to enjoy, so on and so forth. But the addition, though, is you could say, but the catch is you have to watch it through the ads, with ads added in, throughout the film or show, so that way we can make money still on the side while you're able to watch the show or the movie. I think honestly that's the message that's going to get sent. I really do. I really do. But overall, I think this is a good move. I think this is a great news and everything, and can't wait to again see what the aftermath is going to be. Like I said, I'm not like I said, I'm not putting it past them to want to add more down the line, especially more obscured animated shows like the one I mentioned. When the time comes. I mean, you can't tell me either. You can't tell me either that they're not, talking to outlets like ABC and CBS and all that. Because if there's 1 hour long block, 1 half hour to hour long block that they would, that people want, I think, that would be great for Tubi to have, if not even the premium services to have. I think if there's one block that they could try to acquire through a license, not just a distributing license, but an agreement license as well, I think the 2 blocks that they should look at, are CBS Story Break and ABC Weekend Special. Those are the 2 I think they should look into. I really do. CBS Story Break I think might be the better option because even though Paramount owns, even though Skydance, Skydance owns Paramount and CBS and all that, I think they'd be willing to make a deal, with Tubi, with the Fox Corporation, to put CBS Story Break on there. I really do. And I think Disney could be, the same way. Like, they got Disney Plus, and they could put a weekend special on there. But I think, honestly, if they don't want to crowd their service, too much, with content, they just want to focus on what they know people are going to want to watch, then I think they wouldn't have a problem doing it as well. So I think if they really want to pad out the content, the library content, or the content, within their library, if you will, from a licensing standpoint, then I think getting the likes of CBS Story Break and getting the likes of ABC Weekend Special, one of those 2, if not both, I think would be one way to do it. I really do. And correct me if I'm wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think people would agree with that. I really do. And again, like I said, the shows are there's still a lot of shows out there. There is. There's still a lot of shows out there. That were done by Hanna-Barbera, that were done by Ruby Spears, done by Filmation. And and basically Tubi, I've got a feeling, is going to be acquiring them in the future. So this right here, ladies and gentlemen, to me is just the beginning. Because like they said, the cartoon era, the animation era, is starting March 1st. And what that tells me, by Tubi itself, through social media, saying that, what that tells me is what you're seeing here is just the start. It's just the start. Because again, they already have other animated shows on there. But, adding these is just the beginning to something that I think is going to really, help Tubi take off from an animation standpoint. And obviously they're going to get some live action stuff along with it to counteract it. But it's going to be something that's going to change the game for ad-free, not ad-free, but ad-supported streaming services in the future. It really is. It's going to really change the game. I really feel that. But let me know what your thoughts are on this, guys. What do you feel about, or how do you feel, I should say, about this announcement and everything? And what other shows do you think that got omitted that you feel they should be bringing on board in the near future? What other shows do you think that were omitted, for right now, do you think they should be bringing on in the near future? What obscure shows do you think they should acquire, distributing a license to as well to go along with what they have here? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it down below in the comment section if you haven't already chimed in the live chat. And until next time, guys, do me a solid favor and that's like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. Also, click on the links in the description, guys, to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube and to support me outside of YouTube as well. And super thanks will be open in just a bit after the video is done. But guys, give me your thoughts. I'd love to hear you. How do you feel about this? Again, what shows do you think that are being omitted right now? Do you believe they should add on in the future and hopefully will add on? And what other obscure shows, like let's say Mission Magic, do you think they should add on as well? Let me know, and until next time, I am out.